Alright, listen up now, because what I am about to walk you through is one of those stories that keeps getting stranger the longer it sits out in the open, and tonight it just cracked wide open all over again. If you have been anywhere near the internet in the last 24 hours, then you already know the name that is trending, and that name is Chrisean Rock. Chrisean Rock is back in the middle of the storm. Chrisean Rock is trying to disappear from the storm, and Chrisean Rock, whether she wants to admit it or not, is standing in the eye of a case that will not go away. 17 months. 17 months and counting. That is how long the investigation into the killing of her ex-boyfriend has stayed open, and tonight the police just quietly confirmed something that has this entire story lit up all over again. Here's the thing. The man we are talking about, the man whose case is still active, whose file is still open, whose name deserves to be said out loud instead of buried under a hashtag, is Karon Makhai Cann. You may know him as Ronny Doe. But before he was a nickname on a comment section, before he was a name floating around a rap-adjacent scandal, he was Karon, and Karon was 24 years old when somebody decided he was not going to see another birthday. That is the human weight of this story, and if you forget everything else I say tonight, do not forget his name. Karon Cann. Say it. Karon Cann. Because Chrisean Rock has said a lot of names over the last 17 months, and Karon's is not the one she is repeating the loudest. So check this out. The Arundel County Police Department in Maryland told TMZ this week that the case is not closed, the case is not cold, and the case is not going anywhere. Their exact position, as I understand it, is that they can confirm the investigation is open and active, but they cannot release additional details at this time. Now on the surface, that reads like a routine statement. Read it a second time and you start to feel the temperature drop. Because active does not mean stalled. Active means detectives are still knocking on doors. Active means witnesses are being pulled in. Active means somebody, somewhere, is being watched. And when the case in question is tied to a woman as visible, as loud, and as chronically online as Chrisean Rock, active is not a small word. Active is a countdown. Hear it for yourself in the timeline, because the timeline tells you everything the police will not. February 2025. Severn, Maryland. That is where Karon was gunned down outside a home in what detectives believe was a targeted attack. Not random. Not a robbery gone wrong. Targeted. Somebody knew where Karon Cann was going to be, somebody knew when he was going to be there, and somebody made sure he never left. Paramedics fought for him. Doctors fought for him. The hospital was the last address he ever visited alive. And in the 17 months since that night, the streets of Baltimore have been talking, the internet has been talking, and Chrisean Rock has been doing everything she can to talk about anything else. Now let me be very clear about what I am saying and what I am not saying, because a man out of Baltimore named Poetic Flacco dropped a video recently that made accusations I am not going to repeat on this channel. I will not put those words in my mouth. That is his post, that is his platform, and that is his liability. What I will tell you is that Poetic Flacco is not the only voice in Baltimore raising his hand right now. People on the ground in that city are being interviewed. Locals are being pulled in for questioning. Somebody in Baltimore reportedly lost an eye in a related incident, and while I cannot verify every claim floating around the timeline tonight, I can tell you the smoke is not thinning. The smoke is thickening. And that, right there, is why Chrisean Rock's next move is so loud. Because Chrisean Rock posted, out loud, on her own platform, that she wants to leave the country. Read that sentence again. Chrisean Rock, who built her entire brand on Baltimore, who tattooed the city's zip code on her identity, who rapped about Baltimore, cried about Baltimore, and dragged Baltimore into every headline that has ever carried her name, now wants to leave the country. And she is staying in Miami. She will not go back home. She will not visit Baltimore. She will not touch the state of Maryland with somebody else's shoes on. Ask yourself why. Because I have asked myself why, and the only honest answer I can land on is that Chrisean Rock is scared. Scared of what she knows. Scared of what she saw. Scared of what somebody might say if the wrong person sits down in front of the wrong detective. You already know how that ended when Karon was still alive. Rewind with me for a second. Rewind to the moment Karon Cann publicly stepped forward and said, on record, that he was the biological father of Chrisean Jr. Chrisean Rock said no. Chrisean Rock said Blueface. Chrisean Rock has said Blueface, only Blueface, always Blueface, since the day that child was born. Blueface, for his part, has denied that child from the jump. Blueface has said DNA test. Blueface has said not mine. Blueface has said the paperwork the fans saw on Zeus was fake, and Blueface has doubled down more times than a man should have to double down about his own bloodline. So who is telling the truth? That is not a question. That is a fuse. And somebody lit that fuse the day Karon Cann opened his mouth about a baby that Chrisean Rock had already handed to another man. About a month after Karon made those claims in public, Karon Cann showed up at a mall. Chrisean Rock was there with the baby. What happened next was the kind of scene that is still burned into the timeline. A confrontation. A stroller. A raised voice. A woman screaming that she was calling the cops. A man saying, on tape, that the child in that stroller was his son. That is not a small footnote in this story. That is a flare shot up into the sky. Because 30 short days later, Karon Cann was in a body bag, and every person who watched that mall video knew the exact moment the temperature in this feud jumped from petty to permanent. Now here is where I have to slow down, because this next part is where the audience has been ahead of the media for a long, long time. Look at Chrisean Jr. Look at the baby's face. I am not going to tell you what to see, because you already see it. Everybody on the timeline sees it. Everybody in the family sees it. Everybody in the comments section under every one of Chrisean Rock's posts sees it. The baby favors his mother, sure, but the baby does not favor Blueface. Not a chance. Not even close. Not in the eyes. Not in the nose. Not in the mouth. Not in the shape of the head. The baby looks like the man in the ground. And you can call that speculation, you can call that cruel, you can call that whatever you want, but if the DNA test on Zeus was as clean as Chrisean Rock and Blueface both claimed it was, then Karon Cann would not have been out here on record making the claim he made in the last month of his life. So the question the internet has been asking for 17 months, and the question detectives in and Arundel County are almost certainly asking behind closed doors, is a simple one. If Karon Cann was right, if the child in that stroller was his, then Karon Cann had a claim. And a claim like that, in the wrong hands, is worth more than money. A claim like that is worth silence. And silence in a case like this does not come cheap. Silence comes with a receipt. Silence comes with a shooter. Silence comes with a targeted attack on a February night in Severn, Maryland. Let me pause on that word. Targeted. The Arundel County Police Department did not use the word random. The Arundel County Police Department did not use the word accidental. The Arundel County Police Department did not use the word senseless. They used the word targeted. And targeted means somebody planned. Targeted means somebody paid attention. Targeted means somebody wanted Karon Cann off the map, and somebody made a phone call, or a text message, or a whisper into the wrong ear, and that phone call, that text message, or that whisper is sitting in a case file right now with a detective's initials in the margin. That is what active means. Active means the initials in the margin have not stopped being added. Now let's step back and talk about how loudly Chrisean Rock is not talking. Because Chrisean Rock is one of the loudest women in music. Chrisean Rock has cried on live for smaller things than this. Chrisean Rock has argued on live for smaller things than this. Chrisean Rock has fought her own mother on camera. Chrisean Rock has fought Blueface on camera. Chrisean Rock has been in more viral confrontations in the last 3 years than most artists collect in a lifetime. But when it comes to Karon Cann, Chrisean Rock is quiet. She has not posted a tribute. She has not posted a memorial. She has not posted his name. She has not lit a candle. She has not asked the internet for prayers. She has, for a woman who lives on the internet, gone completely radio silent on the one story that should hurt her the most, and she has instead been posting about leaving the country. That is not grief. That is exit strategy. Now check this next detail, because this one has been sitting in the corner of the story ever since the baby was born. Chrisean Rock did not have that baby in California. Chrisean Rock did not have that baby in Los Angeles, in Miami, in New York, or anywhere on the schedule of any tour or podcast or reality television booking. Chrisean Rock had that baby in Baltimore. She flew home to Baltimore, the very city she now refuses to set foot in, to deliver her son. And then she named that son after herself. Not after Blueface. Not after Blueface's family. After herself. Do the math on that. Do the actual math on that. Because a woman who is 100% convinced that Blueface is the father of her child does not usually run 1,000 miles from him to give birth and then leave his last name off the birth certificate the way you leave crust off a sandwich. I am not saying anything you have not already thought. I am saying it out loud so that when it comes back up, and it will come back up, you remember where you heard it first. Chrisean Rock knows more than she is saying. Chrisean Rock has known more than she has said for 17 months. And the Arundel County Police Department, according to TMZ, is not tired yet. So what happens now? That is the real question tonight, and that is the question that has the entire commentary universe holding its breath. Because the moment a police department publicly reaffirms an active investigation, it is almost never a routine press cycle. It is a temperature check. It is a message. It is a warning shot fired across the bow of every person of interest connected to the case, and it is a signal to the public that somebody, somewhere, is preparing to move. And when the public figure attached to that case has just posted about relocating to another country, the timing does not read like a coincidence. The timing reads like a schedule. Now let's rewind to the mall footage one more time, because that footage is the missing narrative bridge that most of the internet has forgotten. Karon Cann walked up on Chrisean Rock at a shopping center. He identified the baby as his son on camera. He said it more than once. He said it while she was calling the police on him. He said it while she was accusing him of stalking her. He said, in one of the most chilling on-camera exchanges of the entire storyline, that he was going to hound her the way she was calling him weird. Weird. Stalker. Cops. Those were her words. His words were father. Son. Mine. And the internet remembers which set of words came from which person, and the internet remembers which one of the two people involved in that mall video is no longer with us. Peep this. There is a receipt, a tweet, a post, a piece of the timeline that Karon Cann himself left behind, and that tweet has been circulating again over the last week as this case flares back up. Karon Cann, in his own writing, in his own voice, told the world what he believed. And it is very hard to argue that Karon Cann was making that up for attention when Karon Cann was already living in the middle of a documented paternity dispute, and when Karon Cann was already being publicly denied by a woman with a massive platform and a rapper with a bigger one. Karon Cann was not chasing clout. Karon Cann was chasing a child. And that is the piece that keeps this case from ever going cold. Because the moment the truth of that paternity is confirmed, in a laboratory, in a courtroom, in a subpoena, in a probate filing, everything else falls in behind it like dominoes. Blueface denials become a liability. Chrisean Rock's public claims become a liability. The DNA test the fans saw on Zeus becomes a liability. And every dollar that has been earned off the branding of Chrisean Jr. as Blueface's son becomes exposed to legal challenge from a family in Maryland that has already buried the man they say is that child's real father. That is the ceiling of this story. That is the reason detectives are not letting go. That is the reason Chrisean Rock cannot sleep in Baltimore. That is the reason the family of Karon Cann has not gone silent. That is the reason Poetic Flacco can post a video making accusations he could never have made if the case had already been closed. And that is the reason I am telling you tonight, as calmly as I can, that this is not the last time we will be talking about the killing of Karon Cann. This is the beginning of the next chapter of this case, not the end. So let me put a few things on the table for you, because I want your read on this. First question. Do you believe Chrisean Rock is genuinely afraid of returning to Baltimore because of grief, or because of guilt? Because there is a difference. Grief keeps you at home in a dark room with the curtains closed. Guilt puts you on a plane. Second question. Do you think the police department in Arundel County would publicly reaffirm an active investigation this deep into the case if they did not already have a suspect in their sights? Because these statements do not usually come out of nowhere. These statements come out of momentum. And third question. If a DNA test were ordered tomorrow on Chrisean Jr., comparing his profile to the profile of Karon Cann, do you think Chrisean Rock would cooperate? Or do you think Chrisean Rock would file every motion, every appeal, every delay, every emergency stay that a good lawyer can file, to make sure that swab never happens? Because your answer to that third question tells you exactly what you already believe about this entire case. Now I know some of you are going to say that I am being harsh. I know some of you are going to say that Chrisean Rock has been through enough. I know some of you are going to say that a grieving mother deserves a break. And I hear you. I really do. But a grieving mother does not stay silent on the name of the man she once called the love of her life. A grieving mother does not post about vacations while the case is still open. A grieving mother does not skip the funeral, does not skip the family, does not skip the memorial, and does not skip the plea for help solving the case. And every one of those absences is not just my opinion. Every one of those absences is on the record. Every one of those absences is in the timeline. Every one of those absences is a footprint that a good detective in Arundel County has already photographed. Let me remind you where we started tonight, because sometimes the beginning of a story is the loudest part of it. 17 months. 17 months and counting. That is how long Karon Cann's family has been sitting inside a house that used to have his laughter in it. 17 months of birthdays without him. 17 months of holidays without him. 17 months of a child growing up without ever knowing the face of the man who fought for him on camera at a shopping mall 30 days before he was killed. 17 months of a case file that keeps getting thicker. 17 months of a woman who used to live in Baltimore refusing to come home. And if you think 17 months is a long time, you are right. But if you think 17 months means the story is over, you are wrong. Here is what I want you to hold on to as we get toward the close of this. Cases like this one do not die from age. Cases like this one die from silence, and the silence in this case is breaking. It is breaking on TikTok. It is breaking in Baltimore. It is breaking in the comment sections. It is breaking on Poetic Flacco's platform. It is breaking on TMZ. It is breaking on X. It is breaking on every corner of the internet where people who loved Karon can refuse to let his name fall out of the algorithm. And once a silence like that starts breaking, the case behind it does not stay quiet for long. I also want to say something quickly about the child in the middle of all of this. Chrisean Jr. is a baby. Chrisean Jr. did not ask to be born into a paternity war. Chrisean Jr. did not ask to be the physical evidence in an unsolved homicide. Chrisean Jr. did not ask to be the reason a man in Baltimore is dead. Whatever the DNA says, whenever the DNA says it, that child deserves the truth. That child deserves the truth from his mother, from Blueface, from Zeus, from the courts, and from every single grown adult who has monetized his face on the internet for the last 2 years. Because when that child is old enough to read the timeline for himself, the timeline is not going to be kind to the people who lied. And the timeline never forgets. So drop your read on this in the comments below, because I want to hear you. Do you think this case cracks open before the end of the year? Do you think Chrisean Rock is going to make it out of the country before the police come knocking? Do you think Blueface is going to keep his mouth shut, or do you think Blueface, once he realizes how much of his legacy is riding on this DNA question, is going to start singing? And do you think Karon Cann's family is finally about to get the phone call they have been waiting on since February of 2025? Tell me. Tell me in the comments. Tell me who you think pulled the trigger, tell me who you think ordered it, and tell me who you think is going to be walked out of a Miami condo in handcuffs before this year is over. Because everybody has a theory tonight. I want to hear yours. And before I sign off, hear me one more time on this, because I want to say it as gently as I know how. This is not entertainment. Not for me, not tonight. This is a case file with a human name attached to it. Karon Makhai Cann. 24 years old. Killed in Severn, Maryland, in February of 2025. Loved. Missed. Still fighting, from beyond, for the recognition he tried to claim while he was alive. If you are watching this from Baltimore, if you are watching this from Maryland, if you are watching this from anywhere in the world where you know somebody who might know something, do not sit on it. And Arundel County is still taking tips. And Arundel County is still working the case. And the person who finally breaks the silence on this one might be somebody watching this video right now. That person might be you. That is the tea for tonight, and I will catch you on the next one. Stay tuned, because the second the next update drops on this case, and it will drop, I promise you it will drop, I will be right back here in front of this camera telling you exactly what I know, exactly what I do not know, and exactly what the receipts say. Chrisean Rock, if you are watching, and I know you are watching, because everybody in your comments section already sent you this video before it even finished uploading, the door is still open for you to tell your side. All you have to do is speak. And Karon Cann, if there is any part of you still listening, we hear you. Baltimore hears you. The internet hears you. And the case file with your name on it is still, tonight, 17 months later, wide open. Rest easy. We are not letting your story disappear. Alright. Drop the comment. Hit the bell. And come right back tomorrow, because if the last 24 hours have taught us anything about this story, it is that the next update is never further than one news cycle away. Chrisean Rock is running. The police are working. Karon Cann's name is still trending. And I will be right here, on this channel, the second the next domino falls. Stay ready.